Here we go. Let me take this text off here. The Hill. Supreme Court mulls limiting mail-in ballots, forcing states to prepare for changes. Now, this is the Hill. They are not screaming lefty, but left of center. So that what they're trying to do, you can already see them setting up the argument. Let me know in the chat below if you can see this argument yet. Forcing states to prepare for changes. They're trying to scare you. This is the first time this is going up to the Supreme Court, and they're already starting to fire the warning shots. There's not enough time. That is, today is the exact maximum amount of time before the election, and they're saying not enough time. So as this gets decided and gets closer and closer to election, like in the next couple of weeks, they'll just go, hey, too late, not enough time, maybe next election. You can already see the Democrats pulling that garbage. Here we go. States are already preparing for the possibility that the Supreme Court could eliminate grace periods for mail-in ballots. What does a grace period mean? Well, it means cheat period. Democrats are famous for they count the votes and they go, how many more votes do we need? And magically, piles and piles of late votes come in. Correlation is not causation. Just because it comes in late doesn't mean they manufactured them. But I don't like anything coming in late. I don't want anything weird or suspicious or strange about my elections at all. I don't want anything to do with it. I want everything above board. And I'll give you some real key points on how you know that Republicans don't like cheating, that we don't want to cheat to win. The High Court on Monday, let me get this text on screen. The High Court on Monday weighed the lawfulness of Mississippi statute that allows ballots postmarked by Election Day, but received 5 business days afterward to still be counted. More than a dozen states have similar laws. They're going to make all the states try and share the same laws. And some states are starting to say you have to put your mail-in ballots in 1 week early to make sure they're counted on Election Day. As the justices questioned each side, they seemed likely to limit the mail-in ballots through a decision, though a decision is not expected until summer. That's when the decision's going to come down. That's when the Democrats are going to say it's too late if they don't like the decision. It has left election officials and legal experts on edge. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. You know what's left people on edge? Probably including election officials and legal experts. Allowing people to vote anytime and send their mail-in ballot up to, some of them were counted, I think it was up to 2 weeks after Election Day. They'd come in so slow. Florida was so slow. They're like, it's going to take forever for us to count. We got to recount. That's what makes people on edge. So they're already trying to set you up that legal experts. An expert came in the room. Everybody bow down. King Expert came to tell us all from on high what to think. I'm an expert on experts, and I happen to know they're all crooked. This isn't just, quote, this isn't just a singular action that's not going to have a ripple effect, said Rebecca Carruthers, president and CEO of the nonpartisan, I doubt it, voting rights organization, Fair Elections Center. Boy, go dig that one up. I guarantee you the Fair Elections Center is somehow funded by Soros. This is going to have a huge ripple effect. The failure of the VA referendum in Florida redistricting are key for midterms. Thanks, Doug, for not being panicking and sharing the truth. Yeah, we want to make sure that we get the military votes in. This could affect them, but I don't believe it will. I think that's all scare tactics when they say, oh, the military, it's going to affect their mail-in ballots. No, it won't. They voted fine. And then suddenly there's the record number of votes in 2020 that no one can explain. Where did the 15 million people go in 2024? We even had the same mail-in ballot laws that were changed, emergency changed during COVID, that allowed for Biden to get that election to have the most votes cast ever. Let's see. Let me get down a ways here. Legal experts. Look at all these pop-up ads. Goodness. Mississippi statute. These are states that are ready for adverse ruling. Look at, how do they know it's already an adverse ruling? This is, guys, this is how media does it. They're planting words in your mind. What's adverse about it? I think it's great. Mississippi statute was enacted during COVID-19 pandemic, but was later made permanent. Why? The pandemic stopped. There was no longer a reason to avoid voting, guys. There was no longer for social distancing, and they kept an emergency statute. A lower court ruled that federal law preempts it, prompting the state's appeal to the Supreme Court. Some 14 states, plus the District of Columbia, D.C., criminal, have grace periods. How many of those 14 states are blue? For regular ballots like Mississippi's, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. On top of that, 29 states accept military and overseas ballots received after Election Day, which also stand to be affected. Again, if it has to be postage stamped by Election Day, can we agree on that? If you're mailing in your ballot from the military? I'm not saying they have to count it on Election Day. It has to be postage marked, especially overseas ballots. It's forcing state election, forcing these words, these fake journalists. It's forcing state election officials to consider how to address a decision requiring all ballots to be received by Election Day. It's simple. Vote the week before. Then you count it on Election Day and you know. Tess Sager, a top aide to Oregon Secretary of State Tobias Rhodes. I wonder what party the Oregon Secretary of State is. So Tobias Rhodes told The Hill that in his state, voters who live 50 miles or more from Portland or cannot drive would be most impacted by such a ruling. No, they can vote 7 days earlier. That isn't there. I just took your problem away. Not impacted anymore. In 2022, nearly 32,000 ballots received after Election Day within Oregon's 7-day grace period were counted because they were validly postmarked, she said. If they're validly postmarked by the date, I don't have as big of a problem with it. I do care if it gets in 2 weeks later. The number was closer to 13,000 in 2024. So why was it 32,000 ballots in 2022? The pandemic was over. And then it's only 13,000, less than half in 2024. Did suddenly people not need to mail in their ballots anymore? It doesn't make sense. These numbers don't make sense. But the Secretary of State's office, I mean, if it halves again, if it cuts in half again in 2026, that would be a normal pattern. So what's the big deal? But the Secretary of State's office fully anticipates those numbers will grow in 2026. Why? Because of increased delays in postmarking and mail delivery by the U.S. Postal Service. Are those extensions because we won't fund the government, also by the Democrats who want the delay? Oregon already has updated its guidance for voters to put their ballots in the mail at least 7 days before Election Day. There, a Democrat, you just solved it. Oregon just solved it. This will affect, by the way, campaign finance advertisements, because they won't want to run advertisements 1 week before election because people will have already voted. It'll be too late. But I'm all for it. Look, if you're on I always laugh at the indecisive voter. They're going around like the day before election. Who are you going to vote for? They're all, I don't know, between Trump and Harris. I'm still torn. I'm like, do you know anything about politics? If you're still on the bubble the day before, after all the political ads and everyone screaming their head off about politics for 4 weeks straight, and you still can't make a decision, sorry, there's something wrong with you. And Reed's office is increasing its communication staff to help push out new messaging. But because Oregon's grace period was put into effect in 2022, ending blah, 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 blah. Okay, very good. Let's get down to the bottom here. Unfortunately, it is difficult to plan for a change. This is all just crybaby, The sky is falling. A change that will occur just months before an election. Well, then you should have done it a year ago. Why didn't you do it a year ago? If months before an election is a problem, why not do it years before an election? You could have done it last year and you didn't. And now you're playing the it's too late card. First, you probably played it's the too early card. Why are we, they brought it up last year probably and said, it's too early. The election's a year off. Based on previous elections, some eligible voters would be disenfranchised by a decision that eliminates the state's 3-day grace period. No, I don't care. False. This goes into the Massachusetts primary. Illinois State Board of Electors intends to help local election authorities inform voters of the new deadline with social media. Yeah, it's normal get out the vote stuff, guys. So this is not a crisis. They're trying to invent a crisis. Here it is again. An adverse ruling could impact those modalities, making it harder for people with varying abilities or disabilities to exercise their right to vote. False, she said, because every year besides COVID, they've voted the same way. And now suddenly their disabilities are magically keeping them from voting. This is a lie. It puts an unfair burden on the states, she said. Well, but you have to do it. Too bad. You know what else is an unfair burden on me? Paying taxes. Can I get out of it? No, I'll go to jail. Justices seem vigilant of the slippery slope. The new Republican committee, which is leading the challenge in Mississippi's law, argues that just one election day, the Tuesday after the first Monday in November, is established by federal election law. Accepting ballots after then is a breach of the requirement it states. Despite seeming to favor limiting mail-in ballots, several justices seem concerned about a slippery slope that could impact voters who cast their ballots on election day. During Monday's arguments, this will be good. Keegan, Democrat appointed, Justice Elena Keegan, Obama's girl, questioned, by the way, she clerked for, I believe, Antonin Scalia, questioned why the RNC does not also take issue with early voting, since its rule seems to say that both casting and receiving votes must occur on election day. Fine, Justice Elena Kagan, they have to both cast them and count them on election day. Now you have 1 day voting. Thank you. A normal person says, okay, well, when I vote early, I'm not doing that on the first Tuesday either, she said. Good point. So fine, day of voting. Paul Clement, a lawyer for the RNC, said that the history surrounding early voting is different than that of late voting ballots. The votes need to be consummated by election day. Solicitor General John D. Sauer, who we love, that's Trump's main lawyer, told the court that the Trump administration agrees. Chief Justice Roberts, however, seemed unsure of the difference. Yeah, he's always the last to know, Justice Roberts. If election day is the voting and taking, that has to be that day, he said. So maybe I just missed it. But it seems to me maybe you're not saying anything other than, well, that's different. Okay, how about it's the same? 1 day voting. Okay, then they have a bunch of lefty guys. Then they have, let's find Alito in here, because you guys have this Sam Alito quote went around everywhere. Sam Alito said from the bench that line drawing decisions may be inevitable to avoid a rule of anything goes. We don't have election day anymore, the justice said. We have election month. So we already know he's a no. The court has not yet ruled and is skeptical. Tenor could shift as deliberations continue. A decision in this case could come as late as June. So that means probably as early as May. Clement said Monday the states would have plenty of time to adjust because the decision would affect only the general election in November, not primary races. There. So again, this is all like just crying, jumping out the window. Here's a funny one I found of AOC. I like this one. AOC says she has no reason to cooperate with federal auditors investigating her suspicious $22 million net worth. Guys, AOC is now worth $22 million on her tiny salary. Do you believe her? I'll get to more of that post in just a second. I got to do this other Supreme Court one because this week they start looking at birthright citizenship.
The Fox Fox News Alert. This court is slated to revisit President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order. Now, it directs all U.S. government agencies to refuse issuing citizenship documents to children born to illegal immigrants or children who do not have at least one parent who is an American or a lawful permanent resident. Now, it's a law President Trump says is in place all over the world, and he's right. You're looking at that map. And if he wins in court, he would effectively cripple the booming birth tourism industry. You heard me right. Now, that is described by a Senate Homeland Security Committee report in this quote: expecting mothers traveling to the United States to obtain U.S. citizenship for their children. The report goes on to say obtaining U.S. citizenship for their children is a hedged bet, a rainy day fund for a better life. And while birth tourism from China is the most common, people from countries like Russia and Mexico take advantage of it too. Birth tourism has been an issue for a long time. This is a Fox News Alert. Next week, this.
Okay, so I have just let me do the rest of that AOC one now. This is going to be a good segue. She says, I have the same right to privacy as everyone else. Anyone here believe that? I mean, I do believe she has the same right to privacy as everyone else. But does she have the right to not be investigated for a $22 million net worth with no business? No business. Where's the money coming from? A bartender. I have the same right to privacy as everyone else. No one's above the law. Did Trump have the right to privacy? when you guys broke into Mar-a-Lago and went through Melania's underwear drawer? And Merrick Garland, you know, he's like looking through the underwear drawer. He tried on a bra. You just know it when